right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. We'd like to hear your thoughts on the president's speech at Trevor Mbiji at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. Let me introduce my guest real quick. Cynthia Mutere, the chairperson for Ford Kenya Women League, is joining us online from Kisumu. And Joseph Simeha, also a political analyst, is also joining us from Kisumu as well. We're waiting for Dr. Alex Awiti, public policy expert, who will be here. And Franklin Mukwanja, executive director, Center for Multi-Party Democracy, will be joining us online in just a bit. Cynthia, let me start with you. What was your reaction to the president's speech yesterday?
First and foremost of significance is that the function has been held here in Kisumu. Kisumu is the regional hub, let's say, for the Nyanza region. And basically because of the politics around Nyanza, Nyanza seems to have been doing opposition politics for quite a while, basically, has been at loggerhead with the powers that be. And so we see that the president coming into Kisumu meant that he has taken more time than the other places. The decision was made that the Madaraka Day celebrations are going to be held in a rotational basis. We've seen them in Nakuru, we've seen them in Western, they were in Kakamega, and now here in Nyanza. And so we see that the president came and took some time to spend some more days than usual, because he didn't do that in the other places when the Madaraka Day was held. But he's done that here in Kisumu because there's some infrastructural projects that the government was launching. And so that is of significance. So to have that being done here is a milestone, because we see that it brings focus to the regions. I remember some time back when we had the function, I think in Nyeri, and we had the governor for Nyeri going back to speak in local dialect, forgetting that it was a national function. And so to bring, we are seeing devolution, actually the intergovernmental kind of relation, having a national function down at the grassroots elevates the region, elevates the place. Because when we saw let's say the Nyeri governor speaking like in the local dialect, then people get cut off completely. And so regions need to know that they do have a place, and also connecting to the national space, and that the nation can reach out to them from their region. So it was really significant for this function to be held here.
All right. Simeha?
Thank you, Trevor. You want my immediate reaction to the speech, which I listened to, I've read again, studied, and I think it's a mix of kind words, dry statistics, missiles, and lamentations. So it's quite a mix, that speech it was. I mean, you have some kind words, and when the president especially speaks about where we are coming from, a nation, what we need to do, some milestones in terms of building new relationships out of formerly difficult relationships, and why we need to build on that. Missiles, especially with regards to what he spoke, directed at the judiciary, which I thought and still think was unfortunate, especially in his position as president, even if that's how he feels, and I think he's entitled to feel like that. But as president, in the office of president, I do not think that he should say that in public because of what is perceived from what he says by the judiciary itself and by litigants, by people before the judiciary. I feel those really were missiles directed at the judiciary, and they were unfortunate. They shouldn't have been. What I call dry statistics is what he ticks off in terms of what he was taking off in terms of GDP, and saying that he's done much, his administration has done more than Mzee Kenyatta, Mzee Moi, Mzee Kibaki. But if you just look at those statistics of GDP, without asking the question, whose economy? To whom does that economy belong? Who participates in that economy? Who benefits from that economy? Until and unless you bring out those quantitative details, you may mislead yourself, even as the one sharing those statistics, if you're going to look at brick and mortar and think that we've built a beautiful road out here, and therefore we've developed, but then who can use that road? How many people can use that road? So without going into those details, into the software, I call that dry statistics. So generally, I really saw it as a mixed bag, this speech, a real mixed bag. That's my initial take on it.
Yeah.
We could go into more detail.
Yeah, we will. Let's wait into more details. And Cynthia, let me bring you in. You know, for point number 9, the president said that the balance between freedoms and consequences of choice has been challenged by the growth of our independent institutions. Their growth has stretched our democratic boundaries to the limit, but it has not cracked them. It has bent the will of the people, but it has not broken it. Did the judiciary bend the will of the people?
I think, in a nutshell, to just break down all those, that long statement is basically what the president is saying. What is more fundamental? Is it for us to dwell on technicalities of the judicial system, or is it more fundamental for us to dwell on what the Constitution begins by saying, that we, the people, give ourselves this Constitution, we give ourselves these laws, we give ourselves these regulations, and we want to be governed by them. And so basically that's the question that the president is asking. Is it more important, is it more fundamental to dwell on these technicalities, or is it more important to dwell on what the people want? Because we see that the process that is actually now bringing us to question, and this conversation of the whole Building Bridges initiative, is that it has been people driven. Although the technicalities of the whole, the way it was launched, the way it started, and bringing in the legalese is now what now the judiciary is looking at. But it's basically been people driven. The BBI came down to I know the steering committee that was formed by the president and the Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga went around the entire country collecting views. And so that was really public participation. Those are the views of the people. The people's voice was added to the entire process. So right from the onset, the people have been involved. When we came back down to bring the bill to the counties, it went for public participation. The people were once again involved. And so we're seeing the people are being carried through this process. And then when we come and bring it to the National Assembly and through the Senate, it is passed by the people that have elected their representatives, and they're acting on behalf of the people. And so we're seeing the people are still on board here. And then when we come for it to completely be thrown out by the judiciary, then the question now comes to fore. What is more fundamental? The technicalities of how the whole process was going, or is it the people who have been involved and have been carried through this process? What is more fundamental?
See, Meher, when the president gave the example of the presidential election that was nullified in 2017 and said we lost 1 trillion shillings as an economy in 123 days, and then he further says that the question the national conversation should ask is, who carried the burden of this choice? Was it the judiciary or the people?
You know, Trevor, two things. One, the judiciary is the judiciary of the people. It derives its power from the Constitution and ultimately from the people. So it's a judiciary of the people. Secondly, when the president made those remarks, I cringed. Why? As a member of ODM, and then 2017, a member of NASA, we took a case to court that we believed had merit, and we believed and still believe to date that the judiciary made a decision on that case on the basis of merit, based on the law and the Constitution. So I cringed. The things we do in politics, socially, and whatever out here, we must know they have consequences. So if it's true that we did end up, and we did lose, I just haven't computed, but if his computation is correct, that we didn't end up losing that much, you cannot blame the judiciary. You must blame the people who brought upon the mischief that then forced other parties to go to court to achieve that result of nullification of elections. I saw his words as a poisoned chalice, because he brings 2017 decision of the Supreme Court and he puts it together with the recent decision of the High Court. And you know, he's saying that in the presence of NASA leaders. Musalia Mudavadi was there, Kalonzo Musyoka was there, Raila Odinga was there. I'm not sure whether Cynthia's party leader was there, who together were in NASA and took that case to court, believing and knowing that we had merit, and the court side, agreed with us. So it's a very risky thing to take wholesome what he said, and I think extremely unfortunate. So, finally, Trevor, constitutional provisions are like muscles. You have to subject them to test. If you don't subject constitutional provisions to test, they wither away. So people have a right to go to court, and the court, the judiciary, has a right to test, to use the law, to use the Constitution, to test to push, and so on. And sometimes magistrates and judges will make mistakes. Hopefully, they are making honest mistakes. I know there are some who engage in mischief. Luckily, we have a tenet system where you have the Magistrates Court, High Court, Court of Appeal, a Supreme Court, that you can take whatever you are dissatisfied with to the next level. So I would say for this one on BBI, the president should really have just waited and still should just wait. However unhappy, personally, small man as I am where I am, there are several things in that judgment I'm extremely unhappy with. But I may make general commentary publicly, but I'm not a president. I'm not a state or public officer. But for him in his position, he should really just wait for a Court of Appeal and embark on the political side of salvaging BBI.
Yeah, Simeha, now that you mentioned that the institutions are supposed to test the Constitution, did the judiciary test the limits of this Constitution, do you think?
It should. That is its work. That is its work. And sometimes judges go outside. Judges go beyond. They make decisions that may be found to have gone beyond the limits of the law and the limits of the Constitution. When I look at the specific decisions they made in this case, personally, this is just a personal thing, I do feel there are places where they just stepped out. But again, for me, I can give you that commentary as just as a man on the streets of Kisumu. The authoritative decision on that will be given by the Court of Appeal, and if not, Supreme Court.
Yeah.
But just in terms of social and political commentary, and this is informed commentary, judges every so often do step out of the law, some making honest mistakes, others out of mischief. In this BBI case, I do feel there was a bit of stepping out of the law and the Constitution. But that is J.M. Semeha speaking. Okay. We wait to see what the Court of Appeal will say.
Cynthia, what do you think of this statement where the burden of this choice, was it borne by the judiciary or the people?
The burden of distress is borne by, let me say, there's a balance. There is a balance because where we see the judiciary coming in, it's actually trying to arbitrate between the, let me say, the technicalities of the law and the whole process, and the burden is now the people who've been agitating for now their rights. And so the people have that burden. And we see that the entire process is by these two protagonists who come together and shake hands, and they start this process. This is the first time we're seeing the president speak on the issue ever since the judgment from the High Court. And he pronounces himself on this situation. And so he's speaking because he is leading a section of the people who have this burden, who have this agitation, who felt that they also have half of the country. The Prime Minister, Raila Amolo Odinga, has half of the country, and the president has half of the country. And so they are bringing on board the two protagonists, and the judiciary is trying to come and to try and arbitrate the two groups. And so it's kind of a big, big challenge. Let me say it's quite a burden on the judiciary as well on the people. And the people want this process to move forward because they have had their say. They want to see that they move forward into a referendum. And they're really anxious to see that that is where this entire process is leading to. That we will go through the judiciary and we'll come to a place where we come now to the referendum and see that the people endorse it. And that will be now a show of saying that we were part of this entire process. We wanted this, we wanted these changes, and this is where we want to take our country.
All right. Let me take a quick break here on Daybreak. When we come back, we continue with dissecting this conversation at Trevor Mbija, Citizen TV Kenya. Sam Masika, I see your views here on Twitter. We'll read them in just a bit.